Okay, so the first tool I'm going to show you guys is called the Shape Builder tool. It's a little bit like the Pathfinder, which is this panel right here, which you can like kind of use to merge shapes and whatnot. But I'll show you a cool technique here. So I'm just going to draw a sphere in the center of this artboard. So to keep the dimensions and to go from the center outward, I'm going to hold Alt-Shift and drag out to create a sphere there. Right. I'm going to kill that fill and give it a black stroke.
Oh, real quick, Robbie. If you guys have questions or anything, don't hesitate to just like raise your hand.
Totally.
And out real quick.
Yeah.
Why is the sky blue?
I move really quick, so if you want me to slow down or go back or have a question about how to do something that I'm not talking about, we can do that. Okay, so I'm going to drag this guy over, hold Alt and drag him. I'm just going to line it like right up the center on the edge there. Nice thing about Illustrator is it snaps that kind of stuff for you. So while holding Alt and Shift, we'll do that one more time. If I just hold Alt, I can create a copy, right? But if I hold Shift, it will actually either keep it exactly horizontal, vertical, or at a 45-degree angle. Okay, so we got these two circles, right? And if I wanted to scale these, I could use my scale tool, right? But if I wanted to scale them from their actual center point and have them maintain the same center point and not a common center point, which you see is this like little blue thing right here in the center, we could use transform each. So I've created this beautiful design over here just to kind of illustrate this. So if I were to grab all these, let me lock the type. If I were to grab all these and just like scale them, 50% or something, right? They maintain that relationship. But if I were to go up to Object, Transform, and Transform each, let's say 80%, you'll notice that they maintain their like that same center point, which can be nice if you have your like design laid out in a certain way, like you have that type there, and you just want the things a little bit smaller, right? And so here is a useful application of using transform each to rotate everything while maintaining its unique center point. And also real quick, like say like I have this grid set up and I want these guys to actually be aligned. So we all know we have like the align to selection here. This is in the align tab. This is just like the new properties panel that comes with the Illustrator 2018. But if I were to take these and align to the top, they're going to align to the topmost box here. But you can actually set a key object that you want it to align to. So once I have these all selected, if I select the object that I actually want them to align to the top of, I can click it and then it's going to align to the top of this object. So that's kind of a cool thing about the align tab, because you don't always want to go to the topmost of these. You want to actually adhere it to a specific object. So okay, but the point being, transform each, instead of like rotating these, and them all rotating at once, what if I just wanted to rotate them in their place but not have to go through each individual shape? You can do that with the transform each. So rotate at an angle of 15 degrees. So yeah, it's really useful. And one thing that's worth noting, in the, what's it called? The transform panel, window transform, will actually it will tell you like the angle that something is rotated. So I don't know, I run into that a lot if I was trying to align things to the same grid that was on an angle and like trying to approximate what this actual angle was. I didn't know that you could actually look that up in the transform panel, the angle that it is rotated at. Sometimes it's a little weird, but for like basic shapes and whatnot, it's pretty useful. Cool. So I'm going to take both of these circles I have here. I'm going to do the transform each, and we're just going to do, kill the movement. 80%, right? And so by copying these, I have This got a copy of itself at 80% right in the center of it, and this got a copy of itself, right? So, I wish I had a picture of the design. I should. What I'm going to try to show you how to do is like to create this interesting looking kind of like interlocking shape, right? Not as easy to do. It looks really simple, but it's actually really hard to get the geometry to line up. Let's know what you're doing.
Robbie?
Yes.
Can you go to transform each one more time and just Command Z real quick?
Yeah.
And then do it?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that they know to copy, not just to...
Right, yeah. So transform each, and then I created, instead of just saying okay, I did a copy, so it's creating a copy of those at 80%, right? If I just said okay, it would just scale those two circles and we wouldn't have two of each. So if you look at this, I need to move these closer together, right? So I'm going to move these two guys, hold shift, and just like wait until it hits that edge right there. And a quick tip for getting stuff centered on your artboard, you can use you can use the align palette over here, but I need to say align to artboard and then center. That's not doing it right. What I like to do anyway is to cut Command 0, paste. So Command 0 centers your viewport onto your artboard, and then pasting, we'll just put it right in the center there. Okay, so now to create this shape, we're going to select everything, and then grab our shape builder tool, which is this guy right here. It's like two little circles over each other. Looks like Shift M is the hotkey for that. So I'm going to select that, and then I'm going to pick a color, and I'm going to kill the stroke. And now basically anywhere that there's interlocking geometry, I can fill it in as its own shape. So I'll just go through here real quick. Boom, boom. And then I'll pick a different color for this. Boom, boom, boom. So now we have that, and then I'm just going to kill the stroke across the board, and we have this interesting, like kind of like impossible shape going on here, right? Taking it a little further, I can like just holding shift, I'm just going to grab each of these red ones, boom, boom, and use the Pathfinder palette. So Windows, Pathfinder if you don't have it open, to just merge those guys. And then I'm going to do the same with the blue. One thing to keep in mind with the shape builder is like it usually leaves a little bit of geometry left over. So like there's this weird kind of shape in the middle that can be problematic if you don't know it's there and you're like trying to move vertices around and whatnot. So I'm just going to delete that. One last point about the shape builder tool. So this would have been the most effective way to use it instead of grabbing my shape builder tool, clicking each individual one and converting it into a shape, and then using my Pathfinder merge shapes or unite shapes to make them one. You can actually just click and drag between it and make it all one shape at one time. So I'll show you how to do that real quick. So see, as I drag into each shape, it will merge that into one individual shape. So yeah, that would have been the fastest way to go about doing that. This way it creates even more weird geometry, I think, in the middle. So let me just pull this apart real quick. Yeah, so we got multiple of these guys in the middle. So, whoa, four of them. So, the caveat there, just be aware that you're going to have some extra stuff going on there. And one other thing that like was kind of confusing to me at first, when you build a new shape, let me back up here. When you build a new shape, it's basically taking on the foreground and background color, the fill and stroke color rather, that you have selected, and I have to actually have these shapes selected first to use it. So, you know, if you don't have a fill color and you do it, sometimes it's confusing because there's nothing there to grab there and you don't realize that you actually made a shape out of it. So I usually like to give it a fill color just so I can see what I'm doing, and I don't like having strokes on. So boom, boom, boom. And then maybe change it to blue for this one. Boom, boom, boom. Cool. So yeah, that is that. Okay. This is like a pretty crazy thing. We just learned at Adobe Max that you can do with the appearance pane. I had no idea this was a thing. So in our appearance pane, let me just drag it out here. We have the ability, like, generally if you have a shape, you have a stroke and a fill, right? If you click on this, it shows that you have a stroke and a fill on this shape. You can actually add more strokes and more fills, like indefinitely to the same shape, right? And you can even do it to things like type that are completely editable, like not even shapes, right? So if I add a fill to this, so I'm in the appearance pane, I click this little hamburger, add new fill, right? So I got a yellow fill. I'm going to put it, so this is like kind of like Photoshop or like Illustrator. It's like a series of layers. So really like the order of things matters. So right now the fill is above the actual type right now, and then if I drag it down there, it's below the type, right?
Wait, can you go back to how you did that? Right after you open up appearance.
Yeah. So I have my type, right?
Uh-huh.
And then my appearance name. If I say add new fill, and click on this like menu part of the appearance panel, and then basically what it added is a fill that's the exact same color as a type, so I can't really see it right now. So if I change the color of that fill, and then if I drag it below, is what I'm doing right now, just so it's hidden behind the type right now. So I can actually apply effects to this fill after this, and the reason I really like this is like it's non-destructively creating like an appearance for an object. And the reason that's important is because like the more like control you can maintain on something that you're working with, the better. Like if you destructively do something and like you can't undo back to where you were, it's just like going to create more work for you. If you can keep things editable, then you're going to save yourself a lot of time in your workflow. Okay, so with this fill selected, this fill layer, I'm going to go to Effects, and I'm going to go to, under Distort and Transform, I'm just going to go to the Transform here. And it's kind of like what we saw earlier with the Transform Each. We have this little window here. I'm just going to say 0.01 horizontal movement and 0.01 vertical movement. So to be more drastic, if I did like an inch and an inch, and I had previews, so basically what it's doing is it's moving that fill that I made relative to the actual object an inch down and an inch to the right, right? But I'm just going to go really subtle, 0.01, 0.01, 0.01. So you can't even really see it, right? And then I'm going to do like 250 copies. So when I say OK, it creates this like cool, like kind of text effect. And what's cool about this is like it's an effect on the fill right now. So I can click on this transform and like go back and edit it. Say actually I wanted 500. It's going to get longer. I can say actually I wanted to like rotate it a little bit. And I don't know. that's a weird effect. Yeah, but it's just like indefinite like cool little things you can make happen to it, right? So with this fill, I can actually do a gradient as well. It doesn't have to be just a solid color, so I can do something cool like that. And then this type is still editable, so yeah. And let's go back here. I'm just gonna go to like 200 copies, and then I'm just holding Alt and Shift and dragging those out to create.
Now you have a poster.
Yeah. And so yeah, these are just gradients.
So you created those gradients? Okay.
Yeah, so real quick, gradients. Here's the gradient tab. You can find it if you go to Window, Gradient. And basically all I did is, made one. Let me pull this up. Can't see it. What the heck? I'm like off the screen here. Hold on. Okay. Yeah. So to make a gradient, got my gradient tab right, and I can just double click these swatches, and I can add swatches to it as well. Boom. And then if I want to save that gradient for later, up here in my swatches panel, I can just drag it right there. Right. Let's see where else we want to go with this. Okay. I'm going to go back to kind of the first thing I was doing. These circles, right? So I'm going to create a circle, and I'm just going to hold Alt and Shift and drag over. Hold Alt and Shift and drag over. Now I'm going to take these three objects that I have created. I'm going to go to my rotate tool, which is right here. Little rotate thing. Oh, I'm kind of off the screen up there, aren't I? There. This little guy. I'm going to double click, and yeah, this has what I want. So I'm going to rotate it 30 degrees, and I'm going to say copy. And then I'm just going to keep pressing Command D until it rotates it all the way around, right? Boom, boom, boom. Command D is really nice because it will just repeat the last thing that you did in Illustrator. It just duplicates your action. So now we have this cool looking geometry thing. I'm going to show you something with the Pathfinder palette. I'm going to make a background like I did earlier, so I'm just going to drag out a rectangle that's the same size as that artboard, and then Command-Shift bracket, send it to the back, right? Now I'm going to select everything that we have going on here in my Pathfinder palette. So boom, Pathfinder, bring up this thing. Basically this is just, if you have multiple things selected, it will chop them up in different ways. Usually the one that I use the most is this Divide, this guy right here, because it basically, it's a lot like the shape builder tool I was telling you about. It's a little more primitive, but for this case, it's what we want. So I'm just going to hit this, and basically everywhere that there's interlocking geometry is just going to make a new shape out of that, right? So if I click on it, it doesn't. It's like it's all grouped up right now. It's in this giant group, but if you look at the layers, there's just like unlimited layers, right? So I'm going to get rid of this. I'm just direct select is a way you can actually select individual shapes in a group without actually like going into the isolation mode, right? So I'm going to get rid of that guy, and let's see here. These strokes. I'm going to kill the stroke on everything. Okay. So I'm going to ungroup these. I'm going to go up to Object, Ungroup. So now all these shapes are kind of like just individual cut up shapes, right? And this thing I'm going to show you, this is like a way to color things. This is actually like a script. So scripts are basically things that people outside of Illustrator that they write. It's a JavaScript plugin basically that you just throw into your scripts folder. And this is just like to randomly color everything here instead of like selecting each object and say, okay, I want that one to be yellow and I want that one to be blue. Instead of doing that, I have the script, and I'll give you guys the link, but it's super simple. It's just a random swatches fill, and basically what it does, it allows you to select everything here and just randomly color it, right? So I'm going to grab everything I have, and then basically once you have the script in your scripts folder, which I'll walk anybody through once we're done with this, but that website also will tell you how to do it. If I select like a color book that I have here, I have a bunch of different color palettes that I've kind of pre-selected. It's going to select this one and say scripts, random swatches fill. It's going to randomly color it, right? Yeah. And then another cool thing, so this is like a side note. I really would recommend you guys get Adobe Creative Cloud if you're going to be a graphic designer, because I know it's like what, $30 or $20 a month, whatever, for students. Like the amount of time that it saves me to have that, and like the functionality of all the things that it comes with, like it saves me so much money because I'm not wasting hours doing things that it can do for me. So one thing that comes with Creative Cloud is this Adobe Kuler website. It's basically how I got all these different interesting color palettes. Is like, you just go to Kuler, Kuler, right? Click on it, and then I just go to Explore, because these are all palettes that other people have created. And you can say, okay, I like this one, right? So I'm going to save it, and just save it to my, because I'm logged into my Adobe Creative Cloud account, and it knows all my libraries, so I'm just going to save it to my main library. And now in my libraries here, it should show up. Boom. Give it a second. Boom, right there, picture, boom, right? And then I can just add this to swatches, boom, it's right there. So the reason this is cool is like sometimes like I won't know like a color palette that I want to work with for a project. I can just take all these objects, go up to edit colors, recolor artwork. It gives me this thing, and I can just like scroll through all these different color palettes that I've done, right? And I can like randomize what I'm actually doing, which is really nice because like in Photoshop or something, you have your like hue adjustment layer or something, but everything is switching like relative to the other colors. This will like take everything that's one color and assign it something completely different. So and there's like infinite possibilities of how you can iterate that, right? So could just do something like that. Scale it down, give it a background, and then just like, move some of these guys. Yeah, you have a design. Okay. This blend tool is really cool because basically it will blend between two shapes or even two colors. So what I'm going to do is just get a new artboard here. I'm going to go to the line tool, line segment tool. I'm going to drag one out, give it a stroke, and I'm going to drag a copy, right? So the blend tool, like I said, it will blend between any two shapes. So I'll make a square and a circle too, so we can kind of look at different ways it works. So if I select two shapes, go up to Object, Blend, Make, it's gonna, basically what it's done is made like a million copies of that line because the way it's set up right now is to make a smooth gradient in between those two things, but we can change that. So quicker than going up to this menu where it says Object, Blend Options, there's a blend tool right here. It basically looks like a square slowly turning into a circle. I'm just going to double click that, and we can see that it's set up to make smoother color. Instead of that, I'm going to go to specified steps. So it's making 483 lines in between that. I'm just going to say do 50 instead. And so now we have this like interesting thing. And what's cool is, once again, this is like completely non-destructive. So if I add like an anchor point to this line and I drag it out, it's going to like copy that. It's going to blend this initial line that I had over to this one. If I make this line green and this line yellow, it's going to make this gradient between those two. Let's go back. Cool. So let me color those again. Yellow. I'm going to set up background of blue. That's way too light. Let's go that. Okay. So this is like something that I just kind of like stumbled upon the other day that I thought was pretty cool. If I grab, basically to work with in an individual line segment or object in a blended shape, I got to work with the direct select tool. So it's really important to like learn kind of the difference between, you know, those two. The black arrow is basically for doing like blunt force movements and whatnot, and A is direct select, you know, it's like more precision, right? So I'm going to grab, with the direct select tool, just this right line. I'm going to go up to effects, and let's do distort zigzag, and let's turn on preview. Sorry, this is really, like, I picked bad colors here because it's hard to see. Yeah. Okay. Effect. Distort zigzag. And turn on preview. So basically, what this does is kind of allows you to create this zigzag pattern, right? And you can either do it based on a corner or a smooth. You can increase or decrease the amount that like that each wave does. So I'm just gonna apply that, and it's just creates this cool effect, kind of like waves almost, right? Going from this straight line and then slowly increasing the geometry. And this, like, to do that by hand would be like impossible. You know, it takes so much time. And this is again still completely editable. If I click on this line again and go to the appearance tab, you can see the effect is right there under zigzag. I can click it and just mess with it more. So yeah, and then just kind of to show you between two objects what the blend mode will do. Let's turn down the number of copies to 5. This is this interesting slowly morphing a square into a circle. So not always like super useful, but you can find things to do with it, right? So another cool thing, let's do this between two circles, right? If I want like a perfect gradient of sizes of circles, right? So I want it to go from this circle to this circle in perfect increments. You know, it'll do that. Drag this out more. And then one more thing about the blend tool is basically it works on these spines. So right now the spine of it is just this straight line between these two, right? So we can change that to any vector path. So we can take an ellipse, and we can take this guy here, and I'm just going to hold shift and select both of these guys. Object, blend, replace the spine, and it's gonna rotate those circles around this guy. What's weird is I've noticed, like, when you're replacing the spine onto a circle, it only does 3/4 of it, so I have to add a vector point up there for it to like go all the way around, right? Otherwise, for some reason, it only does 3/4 of the circle, and I haven't really figured out a better way than just adding a 4th vector point up there. And again, this is completely editable, you know. I can tell it to do 12 circles or 15. I can grab this circle and then this one in the center. It's just going to like perfectly keep those proportions. And then I can like color it. Let me get in here. So it's like, yeah, and this path is like completely editable. So like I could do what we did earlier and just take this, you know, like, let me get in here, isolation mode. Take that circle that I made and then like do the same thing and like zigzag it, see what happens. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just gonna go for it. Oh, it's not letting me do it. Nope, sorry, it's not gonna let me do it. Questions?
Yeah, just one point.
Yeah.
When you're doing these blend modes, and they are editable on that stroke or that path, but if you want those to become individual elements, you want to expand.
Yeah, good point.
Remember to expand it, and also if you want to do, so Robbie, could you go over to that blended wavy line one you did?
Yeah.
So that kind of is reading like a texture or something. So if you wanted to say clip that into a circle or a square or something, which is Command 7, to use to fill that, you have to expand it first, right? Rob?
Yeah, totally. So yeah, we'll throw this into a clipping mask. So what he's saying by expand is basically making individual shapes and vectors out of everything you see instead of this completely editable. So object, expand, and then you can kind of select how much you want. Like if you want it to turn the stroke into an actual shape, it will do that too. I don't like it when it does that. So I'm going to turn that off, but everything else, yeah.
So now they're movable from...
So now, yeah. Yep. And then like a clipping mask. Let's do that real quick. If I wanted to like put this in a shape, so I just drew out a circle. If I select these guys, object, clipping mask, or also Command 7, you know, you kind of got like a sunset looking thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Man, I know that's like pretty advanced, and I'm sorry, like a lot of that went over your head. But if you have like individual questions about Illustrator, or like want me to sit down with you and do it, I'm always happy to.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to explain everything you know.
And Robbie, you recorded this video, correct?
I did.
So this video is going to be on our Facebook page if you guys want to review what we talked about today. So,
Is this making sense to everyone?
Any of it?
anybody excited?
Did anyone learn something just now?
Cool. Yeah, I like really encourage you to like experiment as much as you can in these programs and just like go up to menus and make it do stuff that you don't know, because it's the way to learn and break out of the bounds of like what these programs do. And they won't feel like a hindrance. They'll like be like a tool to help you do stuff faster, you know.
I think one of the crazy things about Illustrator and Adobe in general is all these programs they're a maze, so you could get lost in these programs and everything that they do. But if you start tackling it slowly and like start to figure out little things and start to master those things one at a time, then the program starts to become a little more approachable and a little easier when you're doing projects and stuff. You know, there are things that you can rely on or things that you can go to do certain effects. So yeah, even if you guys just picked up one really cool thing that you learned right now from Robbie, the video is always going to be online, so you can always go back to it and try to learn some other stuff too.
Yeah. One other like workflow thing that has been super helpful to me, especially like doing websites and whatnot, is let me just draw out like a couple different shapes here. Let's pretend that these shapes, all these different shapes that I have here, are like different logos or something and not just circles. If I wanted to like export just like, say like this is a logo, this is a logo, and this is a logo, and I want to export all three of these things as like individual files, I can click the Artboard tool, and if you just click on a shape, it will make an artboard just around that one thing, perfectly encapsulating that geometry. And you can do that like within an actual artboard too. Like I can do, and I can also like, you know, grab these guys, group them, and say I want those guys to be an artboard too, right? And so it has all these different artboards. And then if I go up to File, Export for Screens is like the coolest shit. So basically it will show all your different artboards that you have going on, and you can just, you know, pick the ones that you want. Like say like all these guys. And not only can you just like do PNG or JPEG or whatever, SVGs, PDFs, according to like how big you want them, you can do multiple. So I want like a full size and then a double size and then maybe a half size PNG, and then also I want a JPEG because I'm not sure if it's going to look better as a PNG or a JPEG. and then you would just, so let's go put them on my desktop. I would just say export artboards, and then on my desktop it basically created all these different versions of those. So that's like the half size, obviously that looks terrible. Then PNG, and this can be really nice for web because, I mean, it's not as big of a problem now because people have bandwidth, but they also have data caps, so the like less that you can actually make their device load, the better. So like you want to optimize your images to be as small as possible while still like looking good. So yeah, this is a good way to do it. It's just like really quickly get, you know, multiple sizes of the same thing, and you can really quickly like export a bunch of objects. Yeah, I use that all the time. Yeah, also like I recommend like dragging, once you have like the design somewhere you like, but you want to like take it somewhere else, just holding Alt and dragging a copy of that artboard, and then like messing with it further so you kind of retain what you had back here, but then you can edit this one, and then it's not like you accidentally made too many steps and you can't undo back to where you were and you forget how you did it, you know. So it's like by the end of like, you should see some of my Illustrator files, there's just like 500 artboards on a single panel, you know. So how long does grids go?
No, you're good, man.
We're good? Okay.
You're great.
Cool. Yeah. I don't know. I'm sure some of you want to get crits or something, but
Yeah.
if something comes
Do
to
you
me.
have questions about Illustrator in general, or just like things that you went over that you would like them to go back over?
But, yeah. Like I said, I think pretty much everything he goes over, I understand too. So if you want me to come anywhere, you help me out. I can do that.
Cool.
Thank you, Robbie.
Yeah.
Thank you, Robbie. Cool. So again, that's gonna be online. So if you guys want to check that out, and then post.
Hey guys, real quick addendum here. I'm just going to walk you through installing that script, and then how to use it once more, and then another technique. So first, just in Google, random swatches fill Illustrator script. It'll be the first thing that shows up here. So just go, and the download link is here at the top. And then right here will tell you where to put the script. But I'll walk you through that just because sometimes it's helpful to see it. So I already downloaded it. So it's my downloads folder. It's in a zip file. So I'll need to extract it, which I've already done here, right there. So I'm just going to grab that in my downloads, copy it, and then going to my applications folder. Boom, boom. Illustrator 2018, and then presets, English US, and then down to scripts, and we'll put it in here. So once again, Illustrator, presets, EN US, scripts, and we'll paste it in this folder, and I've already done that, so it's right there. And then if you're on PC, same process, except you're going to go into your program files, and obviously we're not working with CS5, hopefully. But yeah. So now it will be, you'll need to quit out of Illustrator and reopen it for it to show up in your scripts menu here. But it should be there now. And yeah, the cool thing is if you find any other script, you can just put that there, and there's a lot of cool scripts out there that will automate certain techniques that Illustrator can't do by itself. So real quick, how to use that again. So I'm just going to do the same thing I did earlier and drag out a circle. Make that a little smaller, and just boom, drag a copy using Alt and Shift. Center that guy again, and then I'm just going to use my rotate tool to make that kind of sacred geometry looking thing again, and just do copy, and then duplicate that action until it rotates all the way around. I'm gonna put a background here because I need to chop these shapes out of something. So kill the stroke, give it a red fill, Command Shift bracket, send it to back. I'm gonna lock it with Command 2. And then these guys, I'm gonna kill the stroke on these as well and give it just the same color fill. The only reason I do that is because sometimes when you're working with the Divide tool, with the Pathfinder Divide, and you have strokes on each thing, it can, I don't know, not always work as intended. So I don't know, I like to get rid of the strokes so it actually cuts it the way I want it. Command Alt 2 to unlock everything, so unlock the background, and then just hit that Divide tool in the Pathfinder. Once again, Windows Pathfinder, boom. I don't know if I hit that, yeah, okay. Then using the Direct Select tool, A, is going to delete this outer portion and this inner portion, so now we have this geometry. The random swatches fill will not work on this group. They need to not be in a group. If I were to go to this and try it, it won't work. Nothing happens. So if you run into that, that's probably what's going on there. So Command Shift G to ungroup all that stuff, or object ungroup right there. Okay, so now I have to select a color book, or even just like a series of colors. I can do it like this as well. It's just so I have like multiple swatches selected, right? But I find that color books are like kind of the easiest way to do that. File, scripts, random swatches fill. Cool. I'm actually gonna do it. Yeah, let's do it with like 10 colors. Yeah, so more variety. And then once again, we can select all these guys and then edit colors, recolor artwork. Yeah, and then just scroll through all these different color palettes that we made. Say like we like that one, but if you want to like reorder the colors, randomly change color order, this button right here. So I've been using this a lot with my playing cards to like just experiment with different color palettes. It's like a really nice way to quickly recolor stuff but maintain, like, you know, these are all 5 color palettes, so I can just drag out multiple artboards and recolor each one differently and experiment with it. And then once like I see something that I like, then I'll like go in and actually like fine-tune the colors to be a little bit more personal and not so like randomly assigned. But I'm not going to save the changes to that color book. So here's the other technique. So this is like kind of a cool thing. Like I started the tutorial with the transform each, and this is a cool application for it. So once again, if I were to like just scale this, right, it's just going to scale relative to this main center point. Same with this. Yeah, as you can see there, it's just scaling relative to a common center point. But if we go up to transform each, and we say like 50 and 50%, it will, every single piece will maintain its its individual center point and just scale from that. And it can just, I don't know, it just comes up with really cool effects like this that you couldn't otherwise achieve. So now, what's something else we can do? So, say like I want this to be a gradient, right? But if I apply a gradient to this, it looks hideous, like 90s artwork or something, because every single swatch has its own gradient going on. So we can make this a compound path to make the gradient go across every single piece as if it were just one thing. So if I just go to compound path with all these things selected, compound path make, it will make a gradient within this actual guy. So like this one or something. So pretty cool. And then in my gradient palette, I can, you know, make it radial. Maybe drag this yellow out a little further so I actually see it. Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe not super useful, but it's that's like one thing that I've run into in the past, like wanting a gradient to go across multiple shapes, but not really knowing how to do it. Just grab everything, make it a compound path, boom, and you're good to go. So hopefully that's helpful. One other really quick thing. This is just a workflow thing. So you saw me, grabbing grabbing the background, sending it to the back. Sending it to the back. So I all the time am locking and unlocking things because I end up having like so much overlapping geometry that like it's just like I can't select what I want to select. So like I'll grab this shape and I'll lock it, and then I'll work with this, and then Command-Alt-2 to unlock everything. Command-2 locks it, but it keeps locking and unlocking the background, which is frustrating because like that I want it to stay. I don't ever want to be touching that for the most part, or very rarely. So what I like to do is create a layer and just put it below this one, and then I can grab this background, Command-X, select this layer, Command-Shift-V to paste it in place. So now it's on that layer, and then if I hit the lock here, Command-2 and Command-Alt-2 like won't mess with that. It will just stay locked until I hit this lock again. So like I can lock things on top of it, move this, and then Command-Alt-2 to unlock it, and this background stays in place. So if you have elements in the background or something that you just want to stay there and you don't want to keep unlocking when you unlock all, put it on its own layer and lock the entire layer. Alright, please remember to like and subscribe. Just kidding.